My name is Rahul. I am living in New Zealand. I am currently the head of paid at Reach Digital, and I'm also co-founding a Shopify app with over 300 brands on board. My whole journey started actually in Sharjah in United Arab Emirates when my dad was actually posted there for the Indian Army. Growing up in Sharjah was actually a total different experience to what my family had in India. We actually didn't have much support in Sharjah, and my parents did everything they could to provide for my sister and I. With my parents not seeing much of a future for us in Sharjah, they started to decide to look at different countries we can explore to and eventually settle down in. As they navigated through the options, they managed to find New Zealand as being the most suitable for us in terms of the education levels and also how the culture is over here in New Zealand. Growing up in New Zealand was actually a very different experience for us. My parents always made sure to provide everything we needed. They always made sure that education is the #1 priority and that you have to actually create something for yourself. I was super passionate, more so about sports rather than education. And I really loved playing football. I used to play almost every day as a kid. And getting into more senior years of my life where I was able to almost represent the country at a national level. Unfortunately, due to some injuries and breaking my leg, these kind of dreams didn't come true, and was something that was almost heartbreaking for both myself and my family. But I think that's when the realization came that, hey, I need like a plan B, and that plan B has to be some form of education. I used to game a lot when I was a kid, and my parents were like, why don't you just get into, like software development or become like something IT? And, as an Indian, you really do have like a couple of limited options as an immigrant. And it's usually being a doctor, a lawyer, someone in IT, or, flying a plane, for example. For me, it was going into IT. So that's what I chose to study when I was in university. During this period, that's when I started, figuring out I wanted to support myself a bit more, and I started working at places like Pizza Hut where I'd be working 15 hours a week. I think my biggest takeaway from working at somewhere like Pizza Hut is probably the objection handling that I had with a lot of these customers, because at the end of the day, the customer is always right, and majority of the times is how do you deal with that situation so that they do come back for the next purchase, or they do come back to your branch. And that's a takeaway I've taken away into businesses I've started, or at the current agency I'm working at. Fast forward into, I guess, my second year at uni, I was fortunate enough that I was doing some good work in terms of the practicals that I was doing, and I was able to get an internship at Microsoft, working in a small team as part of a project where I was able to build a mentorship platform where someone can sign up as a mentee and a mentor, and the main relationship is, hey, I have similar interests as a student. I want to be partnered with someone who's actually got these real life industry experiences, and I want to learn from them. So if this is you in this phase where you are an intern at some type of big firm, I think the main advice I would give that I didn't leverage as much is making sure to network as possible. You'll most likely have these Friday drinks, or you'll have some type of social networking event, and I think it's important you put yourself out there to seniors that you are there to learn. The relationships that you end up building there and you work with eventually pay out in the long term, so you're able to actually hold that relationship, and maybe that might lead to a future job, it might lead to partnering up with someone down the line, but it's something that you should definitely initiate in your internship program. So that excitement eventually led into tutoring. I started teaching first year computer science students. I would be teaching a lot of Python 2-3 times a week. It was great, change as a student. You're earning some more income to your additional job that you had. As I picked up more tutoring classes, I think my grades did suffer as I did not go to as many lectures as I probably should have. But at this point, halfway through my third year of university, I was able to secure a grad job in a different city, and at this point, I frankly didn't care. I actually used to work on over there was for a local bank, and we did everything from front end to back end, and also a lot of security. And I think the core learning for me was understanding processes and systems and talking to stakeholders. I think that was the key learning. Really showed that, yeah, we are making these key changes. This is the growth it's going to provide, and here is basically the expected return you're going to be getting. Moving into this new full-time job as a software developer was definitely interesting. First couple of months, it did take some time to adjust. I had a lot of, I wouldn't say anxiety, but there was a lot of stress where I was like, I'm not sure if I'm quite delivering to what is the expected level, and There were times where, I'd stay back, work late, or make sure someone stayed back with me to mentor me a bit more, or I would take my laptop home and make sure I work on this to make sure I'm constantly delivering as a graduate would be. So this project actually lasted a year and a half while I was on it. Before that, it was running for almost 10 years, but I think it was eventually being transitioned internally into the bank. And I did push a lot of ideas in terms of what I wanted to implement, something that's creative and different from the norm, but it constantly got rejected. I think that's where it kind of led me to almost like a, fuck it, I'll just do it myself. And I think that mindset shift from, I'll just do it myself is really common among a lot of people actually. And I think it's just, a lot of people will think it, but not a lot of people will execute on it. And I think that's something is you need to find that balance on what works. So for example, I know a lot of people will go ahead and go all in on a project. That's completely fine. For someone like me, it was important that I had a secure income coming in and also starting a new project. So this is where, emotionally I was kind of tied, where I'm like, do I go all in on something that I have no idea about? Not a good idea. Or do I just learn about it in my background, or learn about it, outside of work, and kind of build on it from there? At this point, I was, providing for myself. I was flatting in a different city, and I think it's important to really understand the financial situation. If you are in a scenario like this, I would strongly recommend do not quit your full-time job just because you suddenly hate it and there's some issues. Try and find a balance between these two things and be like, okay, great, I'm working like 8 to 9 hours a day, maybe 2 hours worth of transport, and I've possibly got like 3 hours realistically to build something for myself. And those 3 hours are your crucial point. Is like, okay, what am I building, or what am I learning? And I think for someone like me, is like, okay, I can put like amount of time to learn every day, and then eventually start investing my own money. And that happened, I would say around 4 months in of actually learning what it's about. The first store I actually launched was a clothing brand that miserably failed. I lost quite a bit of money on that. For me, it was a lot, like 5-6K. I lost a lot of that. If you look at my store, it was just a bunch of random products. There was no real branding, no real system around what to buy, what to shop for. And it seemed quite scammy in my opinion. So, looking back now, it's a massive learning, and it's like, okay, how did I not see this? But when you're in that moment, you're kind of clouded by all these, decisions that you're making. I think when you're getting into these sort of spaces, you need to find mentors or someone to guide you. For me, the mentor was just YouTubers. And I think there are things obviously you have to take with a grain of salt, just like anything online. But I think it's a great place to find mentors for free, basically. So after a year of online marketing, I think I was able to finally crack something that worked well, and it was in the toy niche. I was able to sell toys online to basically parents in America. And I think understanding the consumer psychology behind, okay, these are what parents are looking for behind these toy products, and really pushing those new products through Facebook and email marketing. And I think was able to really grow it quite steadily at what I thought was a lot of money back then, to around like $1,000 a day. That was almost like a mini achievement, and it got to a point where I was at work, doing, as a software developer, I was also fulfilling orders on the back end through with my supplier. I was sending out invoices for tens of thousands of dollars, and the supplier ran away with it. I had a lot of backlog of orders, had to refund a lot. I was able to rescue it with a new supplier, but there are a lot of systems and processes you need in place if you are looking to scale and grow brands, which I unfortunately didn't have. Once I had actually fixed a lot of these issues, I got to a point where I knew that in order to keep growing the business, I either had to get further knowledge, or something I didn't really want to take to the next level. So I exited that business really quickly while I had that hockey stick growth, sold it on a platform called Flipper, and was able to get my first real chunk of change that I was genuinely excited about. So once I had sold that business, I was kind of on the hunt on the next best thing for me in the massage niche. There weren't many competitors at the time, so I went ahead and started researching more of the pros and cons of going ahead with it. Hunted for suppliers that were outside of AliExpress that I could, talk to one-on-one on Skype at the stage. At the time, my partner actually built a Shopify store. First initial stages started out with a low marketing budget on Meta ads and some influencer campaigns, and we were immediately able to see some great returns on the back end. I think what I was learning at this stage, even though Meta was working quite well, was having something, or having a brand or a product that's fits into someone's daily habit. Once I figured out how to fit in that daily routine, it was almost like a rinse and repeat process for me. Within the first couple of, I'd say, weeks, we were able to scale to $2,000 a day. They would say, you know, it's easy to keep up with high volumes of scale, but for me, as someone who's had some previous issues with suppliers, it was quite difficult to have that trust built in. So the relationship we had built with them previously before launching the brand helped solidify this in terms of how we wanted to scale the brand. I started to build more of a passion on the acquisition front for the type of content we would make, the briefing of some of the scripts we would write on our small little team of like 2. And that's when I started actually doing some part-time media buying for some other clients on the side. So at this stage, I'm still a software developer. I'm running this massage business and also part-time media buying while also trying to figure out how to keep a social life at the same time. Archer is actually the founder at Reach Digital, and how I actually met him was through a Facebook group. I was basically like, look, I'm working with these size marketing budgets and I wanted to basically work with a bigger budget. Who can kind of provide me with these opportunities? Because I really wanted to learn. I wanted to learn fast and I wanted to just get to these bigger opportunities. So when I had actually put this post out on Facebook, Archer actually reached out and I was like, look dude, I'd happily be able to work for free, but he was like, no, let's get you on something paid and part-time, and started working with some cool brands at Reach Digital, which led me to the point where I was like, okay, look, maybe I should just sell this business, go full-time on this and really make the most of this opportunity that I have, because it is an opportunity to learn faster, learn more. There was a lot of stress when it came to running a business and also being a software developer. And I just wanted to make the full transition to go into the media buying growth strategist phase on an agency side. So I actually went ahead and sold that business while also still working part-time. Obviously being me, decided to take another opportunity up. I had a friend who was an artist. And this is during COVID, was kind of like, hey, let's make some money. And I was like, okay, great. This is like a good opportunity. You're an artist. I've actually got some experience in e-commerce. Let's start an art brand. As you can see in the background, these are some of the pictures that we had, or some of the canvases that we actually sold. And for us, it was more of motivational artwork. So it's speaking directly to entrepreneurs, it's speaking directly to anyone who's an athlete or in that progress of kind of bettering yourself or striving towards a goal. And our main motto was actually inspire your space. I started to notice some early problems in the business. In month 3 and 4, I realized that once you buy a piece of artwork, I don't think you're going to want to come back and buy another one. You really just buy an art every, 6 to 8 months or something, if you're lucky. And for me, that was a problem, but I kind of ignored it and, just kept trying to grow. But I started exploring different channels. I brought on more artists. And what that allowed us to do is having different points of creativity. So having different artists come on board and do, limited collections where it's like this artist has its own, audience from Instagram, bring them on board to an online store, let them, post their own artwork, move away from the paid channel approach that Facebook had. Even though it was constantly printing, we weren't solely leveraging that platform. We were leveraging people's audiences, which for me was a much more exciting option. I also found some really cool strategies to get our artwork to celebrities. I used to go on Drake's profile and look at everyone he's following, and I would find the people with the lowest followers and start engaging with their content, getting them artwork. And when Drake would scroll on their feed, he would see the artwork, and that's how I try to get an introduction into these, A-list celebrities or NBA players, for example, or musicians, whoever it may be. Once we started seeing some real growth through these opportunities, we started noticing TikTok become more of a presence in social media, start posting content there. It would mostly be me from my house and really trying to build that community aspect behind it. We also do a lot of build in public approach. I think that worked really well for a brand. You were able to almost relate to the founder and showcase what your experience is like when building it, the failures. People love being part of the story and being part of the journey. And I think that's what helped us grow to another level. This was a point where I was actually transitioning full-time into Reach Digital, and I think the trade-off of how much I could be learning at Reach Digital in comparison to just running the brand was on a different level, in my opinion. And I think I was still at that stage where I don't think I could have run this brand really successfully. For me, it was like, okay, let's exit this brand, sell it off to an owner who can really take it to another level. I was grateful that an agency was able to acquire this, rebrand it and take it to another level. And for me, it was like, okay, great, I've got 2 of these exits under my belt. Now I can actually start learning what it's like to be a true operator, how I can learn to be behind the scenes of these bigger businesses, to learn how they operate. understand cash flow to a different level, understand what's needed to go from 2 million to 5 million or 5 million to 10 million, etc., and take those learnings on board and maybe start another brand when the time is right. When I made that transition into Reach full-time, I realized that there are going to be a certain amount of brands I'm going to be on, which meant I would also do some consulting on the side for other brands. And being on 10 to 15 accounts, I would just be learning so much faster, even though I was almost at the burnt out stage, and mentally I was not in a good space. And I did realize there was that sacrifice I kind of had to make, and it's not something I would recommend to everyone actually, but for me it was like I have to reach this breaking point where I want to learn as fast as possible, and I got really aggressive with these learning goals. So after being on a lot of these brands, growing a lot of these accounts, I think I was able to create these playbooks for myself and also for brands inside of Reach Digital, where I was like, okay, this is how you truly grow a brand. These are the levers you have to pull, and this is the type of success you should be expected to see for a lot of your brands that you're currently working with. If you want any free marketing content, you can find it in the link below. I've got Notion templates built out on campaign structures, how I actually manage a lot of these brands, a lot of tools that you can actually use for free. So I think fast forward to today, currently the head of paid at Reach Digital, work towards that, and also really trying to grow this agency and see how far we can take it. We've got exciting people on board, we've got exciting brands that we're working with. One of our clients actually just got acquired, which is really cool. And I think the next steps from here is to really see how far we can take the agency and the SaaS that I'm currently building on the side, which I'll share more info about. I'd love to answer any questions you have around either my background or marketing in general, and I'll see you guys in the next video.